We want to get them away from the screen, off the couch, into the outdoors. We like to say, get them dirty.
Yes.
And then we put them in what appear to be really fun outdoor activities, right? So you go camping or canoeing or aquatics, or you go on a hike. But we are really a youth development organization. Most people say, oh yeah, scouting, they're the outdoor camping organization. I like to say that's our classroom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But our lessons are around leadership, character, citizenship, personal fitness. And in this group setting, it's really about social interaction, project management, getting along, respect for others, and empathy. Now, nowhere in our Scout handbook does it say we're going to teach you kind of these life social skills. It says we're going to show you how to tie a knot, or we're going to show you how to put together a weekend of camping. But we know, and as parents we know, to achieve those goals that we've set for our youth, they're going to develop these other skills, which are also really important to their development.
Hey everyone, this is Jonathan Marx from GoToHealth. I hope you're having a wonderful day. There's a lot of understandable parental concern these days about kids spending too much time online, being potentially exposed to harmful content, and even threatening the safety and well-being of the children themselves. As families settle into new school year routines, many parents are seeking meaningful ways for their children to learn and grow outside the classroom. This fall, Scouting America is spotlighting the Cub Scouts program, a hands-on experience designed to build confidence, problem solving, and teamwork through engaging projects and outdoor adventures. With flexible programming, Cub Scouts easily complements the other extracurriculars like sports, allowing kids to explore new interests and develop essential life skills. Parents often describe Cub Scouts as the place where kids learn to take their first steps towards independence. Whether it's earning a first badge or leading a hike or helping a friend, children gain confidence, empathy, and leadership skills that last a lifetime. With us to talk about this today is Roger Krone. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Scouts of America. He's also an Eagle Scout, and he was the former Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Leidos, an information technology business. He is a member of the Georgia Tech Foundation Board of Trustees, the board of the National Air and Space Museum, and the board of WETA Public Television and Radio in Washington, D.C. Before we get to Roger, we're building a community of people who care about living well, aging better, and showing up for their health every day. If that's you, please tap the 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or give us a like on YouTube or wherever you're listening to us. This helps others find this space too. Thanks in advance. So welcome to the show, Roger Krone. How are you today?
Jonathan, I'm great, and thanks for the opportunity to be on your podcast and speak to your viewers.
Good. So I know I'm being old-fashioned. I'm a scout myself, but Cub Scouts are not just for boys anymore. Tell us about that. When did that change?
Yeah, that changed in 2018 for Cubs and 2019 for what I call Scouts PSA, or our high school program. You know, it's interesting, the evolution. We were leaving girls in the parking lot on Friday nights, as we tend to go camping on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was really because of demand. And the girls were saying, I want to go camping too, I want to do these terrific things. We now have 200,000 girls in our program.
Congratulations. That's quite a shift. Wow. Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad that's working that way. So can you speak first, before we get into questions about the Scout program, can you speak first to the concern that parents have about their kids spending too much time on their online or on their phones? What do you hear from parents about that? And how does scouting help relieve that anxiety?
Yeah, well, we hear that a lot. We've all, lived through COVID. I think I'm a parent and a grandparent, and we thought after COVID, people would, leave the couch and leave the small screen device, and they would just pick up where they left off. It hasn't worked out quite that way, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about some of the secondary and tertiary effects of screen. By the way, there's nothing inherently wrong with screen or video games. It's the amount of time that they're on the screen. as a replacement for activities that are more developmental, especially those that are more social. And what parents have talked to me about is kids have less friends, they have less social interaction, they're not learning the social skills that they need to be successful later on out in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're finding, especially as some of their activities drop off, like maybe you play travel soccer, but only 30 kids make the varsity in the high school.
Right.
And when they get to that age, it's more difficult to find things that get them outside.
Good. So tell me, what life skills do kids gain from Cub Scouts that they may not gain online or in school?
Yeah, schools are really good about book learning. And, that is their mantra. You learn and then you advance and you learn more, whether that be math or English or history. You learn about, how the country was founded. We're really a complement to that. First of all, we're outside the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So in most cases, we're outdoors. Yeah, we're not exclusively outdoors, and we run something called a Pinewood Derby, which is little race cars, usually in the winter when kids aren't outdoors. But we want to get them away from the screen, off the couch, into the outdoors. We like to say, get them dirty.
Yes.
And then we put them in what appear to be really fun outdoor activities, right? So you go camping or canoeing or aquatics, or you go on a hike. But we are really a youth development organization. Most people say, oh, yeah, scouting, they're the outdoor camping organization. I like to say that's our classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But our lessons are around leadership, character, citizenship, personal fitness. And in this group setting, it's really about social interaction, project management, getting along, respect for others, and empathy. Now, nowhere in our Scout handbook does it say we're going to teach you kind of these life social skills. It says we're going to show you how to tie a knot, or we're going to show you how to put together a weekend of camping. But we know, and as parents we know, to achieve those goals that we've set for our youth, they're going to develop these other skills, which are also really important to their development.
I just want to testify to the lifelong effects of scouting because I was a scout. I have a big smile on my face because I was in the Pinewood Derby with my dad, and then I did it with my son. It was such a wonderful event to have. You also just mentioned knots. I love knots, and I used knots every day. And it was just a wonderful experience that has stayed with me for a lifetime. So, how does, parents are really busy these days. A lot of parents work, both of them are working. How does the program work for families and balancing school and sports and other activities?
Well, families are busier than ever. Kids are busier than ever. By the way, Gen X and Gen Z are different. Like my dad, greatest generation. My mom, stay at home. There are very few stay at home moms. And by the way, so many of our families are single parent. And we're a 115-year-old organization, but we're not static. And so we have evolved our programs so that they're more flexible. They're much more easier to deliver. So we just rolled out a new Cub Scout program, really turned it upside down. It is digital. We have activity cards, where my mom literally spent a day baking to prepare
Yes.
for our den meeting. And
Yes.
it's just not going to happen today, and we realize that. So the design of our program is such that a parent can prepare in much less time than ever before. And again, they have these cards, you arrange them in order, they have activities, they talk about the supplies you need, and you can put together a meeting. But I like to say from the youth side, because the youth are involved in multiple things. By the way, I was an athlete, I was involved in athletics, and church and choir and scouts and other things. Those skills of multitasking, by the way, they're not new. Again, we multitask. We just didn't have the digital help that kids have today. I like to say our programs are good as a number one priority for youth and family, but they're also good as a number two and number three. And in the design of our programs, we realize there are many other things that kids will be doing, and they may not make every meeting. They may not make every camping activity, and it's okay. You can catch up, you can skip. By the way, our new Cub program, you can enter at any age. Kind of in my era, you kind of had to start at the bottom and work your way up. We've redesigned it because we know that's not how families do things today. And honestly, I moved my family 5 times, and we get that discontinuity when people move. But today, it's so much easier to reconnect with the movement if you're in another town. The other point I would make is learning to multitask isn't a bad thing, and learning to prioritize and plan ahead as a youth. So if you have a meeting on Wednesday night, that's, and you're an athlete, and so you have to figure out, oh, how am I going to get my homework done, right? As opposed to just saying, oh, I can't do it. You're going to, well, I have a study hall. Usually I just, goof around in the study hall. Now I need to get my homework done because I know I've got track practice and then I've got a scout meeting. And those priorities, right, understanding and those planning skills, those are really important later on in life, because when you're an adult, you don't get to choose whether you multitask or not. We are all multitasking.
God, I have such wonderful memories about the camping trips that I did during scouting. Can you tell us about the outdoor opportunities that the Cub Scouts provide these days?
We had, you and I had such great experiences in camping. But in my era, Cubs was more arts and crafts, popsicle sticks kind of a thing. But the demand, what we heard from both the youth and the parents, were we would like to see more outdoor, more camping, aquatics, hiking programs in our Cub. So we've rebuilt our camps. We now have what we call Cub Worlds at most of our camps, and we rebuilt our program to get the kids more outdoors. Cubs can now overnight. I couldn't overnight back in the 70s when I was a scout. And at these Cub Worlds, we built some structures, like a Cub World may have a fort, or it may have a castle, or it may have something that looks like a ship. And then the activity, which is like maybe often just a Saturday during the day activity. So it fits sort of the available time that, a 3rd grader or 4th grader may have. But the activity is, we're going to go out to the Cub World and we're going to pretend that we're going to sail that ship around the world. And then how are we going to do that? Then what are we going to do for lunch? And do we need a map? And do we need a captain? Do we need mates? And it sounds like a game, but if you kind of listen closely, it's task managing, it's prioritizing, and it's scheduling, and it's make sure you've got the supplies that you need to go on the trip. And by the way, the kids just love it. They love being outside. They love getting dirty, and they love these new experiences.
That's great. So I have a couple more questions, but before I ask those, I just want to let people know where you can go to find out more, which is beascout.scouting.org. That's beascout.scouting.org. So Roger, what skills, you've talked about planning skills, you've talked a little bit about social skills. What kind of skills does scouting prepare people for later in life?
Yeah, first, I would say those social skills and interacting with your peers. By the way, scouting is a great place to make friends. Terrific. I have lifelong friends that I met in scouting. But I came together as a scout with people from my neighborhood who I'd never met. And we had to learn to work together. And I had to learn to respect their ideas. Because again, in scouting, we're going to throw a task at you. And it may look like a game, but it's really a task that needs to be solved. And the best way to solve it is as a team. And working together as a team, respecting other people's ideas, and that maybe the best idea isn't yours, and learning that when you're young be really valuable when you're adult. But that social interaction, the team building, the empathy, right? Because not everybody has a great day at the scout meeting. And by the way, not everybody learns knots at the same speed.
Yeah.
So being able to reach out and help, one of your fellow scouts learn a knot, those I think are really important. We also teach things like budgeting and project management and, scheduling and putting a duty roster together, those kind of things you don't really think about. If you're going on an outing, you got to do that as well. I joke, my professional career was mostly in program and project management. And I tell the folks, I put my first schedule together, my first integrated schedule together, probably when I was 11 or 12 years old in scouting. And, budget-wise, same thing. I've just added a lot more zeros as I got older.
Yep. Folks, I hope you can tell by the experience and the conversation that we're having that scouting has had tremendous impacts and positive impacts on our lives. And I really want to encourage you to consider it for your children and grandchildren. So, Roger, before we end today, I always like to ask, what question didn't I ask that I should have asked? Or what kind of message would you like to leave with people today before we leave?
It's the same message. I think all youth serving organizations lost membership during COVID. During COVID, we couldn't meet, we couldn't go camping, and it broke sort of the chain.
Yes.
I was a scout. Frankly, my brother was a scout. So from the time I can remember, he was doing cool stuff, so I wanted to do cool things. All youth serving organizations lost membership in COVID. And we kind of introduced youth to the couch and the small screen. And my strong message is there is a place for small screens and video games and the internet. I think it's very valuable. You have access to unlimited information. That's a terrific asset. But we've got to get the kids back outdoors, right? We've got to get them back into groups, doing social stuff, learning those skills that will make them successful when they're adult. I've been in aerospace. I've worked on some big aerospace projects. What I learned was no one does something like that as an individual. Mm-hmm. You do that as a team, and the team skills that we teach will change the life of your youth. So give us a try. And if you're not sure, come and visit one of our meetings and just stand in the back and assess for yourself whether this would be a great thing for your child to participate in.
Good. Roger Krone, thanks so much for being with us today.
All right, Jonathan, thank you.
Good. So remember, you can learn more at beascout.scouting.org. Roger Krone is the president and chief executive officer of the Scouts of America. He's also an Eagle Scout himself. He was the former chairman and chief executive officer of Leidos, an information technology business. He's a member of the Georgia Tech Foundation Board of Trustees, the board of the National Air and Space Museum, as he mentioned, and the board of WETA Public Television and Radio in Washington, D.C. Before we leave, studies show that acts of gratitude improve your well-being, so here's your chance. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, or wherever you listen to us, and help this show grow. It's free and takes just a second. Thanks so much in advance. This has been Jonathan Marx with GoToHealth, and as we say at the end of every show, go to health. Take care. We'll see you again next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in today to Go to Health. You are one of almost 10,000 people per day who enjoy the evidence-based health information offered by our guest health experts. You can watch us on our website and YouTube and listen to us on 8 podcast networks. Be sure to join Jonathan Marx in our upcoming shows each week. If you like our show, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. You can subscribe to the show, join our email list, send us feedback, browse through the online store, and view our library of over 150 shows at GoToHealthMedia.com. See you next time, and remember to elevate your life with Go to Health.